Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to R&R with Ryan and Ricardo. So on these sessions, we go over various questions that are sent to us by class attendees and by participants. Ricardo and I have been meditating together for a decade now. So we've really been on the journey together from the start. And he's one of the most well-trained and insightful practitioners I know. So I'm glad to have him on, and we're going to take these questions from a few participants. And if anyone has questions themselves, please load them into the comment section wherever you're watching this from. So
yeah, this is going to be a discussion, and we'll see where we go from there. Because I'm pretty sure one little concept can go into many routes. So we'll see what we get into.
Yeah, I titled this video 20 meditation questions, but it's possible that we only get through 2 because Ricardo and I could go on and on about different things. So we'll see where it goes. But we'll start with our first question. And this is a question from Robin. We'll start with, is meditation helping me with my physical life, and in what way? So this could be a reference to different circumstances in his life, but I think he's referring to his physical body and his health. So let's address it from there. And Ricardo, you're an expert on that. So
let's, I think we should take it into 2 ways. We should talk about more of the physical, like health stuff, but then what comes along with the anatomy, or like the
energetic anatomy.
Yeah.
That's what you mean? Okay.
So on one hand, when we start to practice meditation, yoga, there are scientific studies behind the positives. You have, obviously, you're more calm, you produce more of the endorphins and oxytocin, like all these things happen in the anatomical side of it, right? But there is something much deeper, and that's the more esoteric side. And we'll get into that. But I know for me, when it comes to the physical meditation, obviously, for the both of us, you can say you're a much happier person.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Because a lot of it has to do with the just level of clarity in our mind that comes from practicing enough. Once that clarity manifests, there's just less that's troubling you.
Right. So. And there's this phenomenon that happens with awareness that naturally things allow yourself to be more comfortable with circumstances. It's not about, there's no more dealing with circumstances. It's just being with circumstances, allowing yourself to relax in these things, whether it's a emotional problem or a physical problem. And so I feel that with this mental side, that's what arises. Now, when it comes to the actual physical side of it, there are instances where you can deal with actual more of the microbial side of things. And I don't know if we want to get too deep into that.
No, I think we can. Yeah, like, what's the relationship between meditation and health? Like here in the West, we have a big connection, or there's a relationship between meditation and mental health. But as far as the East is concerned, China has an ancient tradition of Taoism, and meditation is in that tradition. So there's directly a relationship between the spiritual practices and health. That's kind of neglected in, I'd say, some of like the traditions that, like Buddhism and Vedanta and Hinduism, because there's this idea that the body is the trap. It is the thing that is between you and enlightenment, and it's something to basically be cast aside. And even if there's truth to that statement and there's truth to that approach, there's an unhealthy side effect of that. You find a lot of people who meditate very deeply, but their physical health is not good, or they're monastics or priests or nuns, and their health is in decline. And my perspective on that is that actually makes cultivation harder. If you want to dedicate your life to practice, but you're not taking care of your body, that's going to have consequences down the line. And Ricardo and I both know fantastic teachers, absolutely incredible teachers whose lives were cut short because of that. So, but I think if you're doing practices that have to do with the breath, mindfulness of breathing, pranayama, and yoga, generally those practices will improve your health.
Well, let's think about the more the Chinese Buddhists, or Japanese Buddhism, where you do have the physical, which is Tai Chi and martial arts, along with the Buddhist sitting practices.
Yes.
You see their health completely different than more of the Southeast Asian Buddhists.
Right.
We were both Buddhist monks at a Thai temple, so we can see directly the physical side to
physical differences. Yes.
So obviously they're the Mahayana Buddhists, they're vegetarians.
Right.
The second thing is they practice Tai Chi, and there's already a bunch of studies on why Tai Chi is helpful. But in terms of esoteric practices, there's an actual transformation of your bone marrow. There's a transformation of the meridians. You just go through this huge transformation in terms of the physical and the spiritual anatomy that allows yourself to either live longer, be healthier, all these things. And for us, I know Ryan has his opinion too, where in order for you to reach full enlightenment, for us and our kind of standard, it's not only the mind enlightenment. We do believe there's also this physical side to it. There is a physical enlightenment that one must reach. Don't get me wrong. I think it's in Buddhism, it's known as Dharmakaya. Like that mind enlightenment, I think it's essential. I think it's important. And I think for most people that reach that point, it's like, why am I going to...
What's the point of cultivating anything further?
Yeah.
It's complete.
Yeah. But I think for us, there's something, I don't know, there's something about completing off the body of an enlightenment that's, I don't know.
Yeah, that's addressed in esoteric Buddhism. So like Vajrayana, and it's in some of the Mahayana texts too, that there's this concept of a body of enlightenment, or body to a purified and enlightened nature. And a way to illustrate that was when Nan Hua Chin said he realized enlightenment, or he had his awakening to Tao, right? Realized Dharmakaya. Mind was enlightened. And then he tried to levitate or fly, and he wasn't able to. And he cried right then and there. And he said, all the scriptures were lies. I've been deceived my whole life. And then he said, but I realized that even after awakening, the physical body has to go through its process of transformation. And he described the different kinds of consciousnesses. And he said, the ordinary mind empties out, and the awakened mind, the Buddha nature, is what's realized. But the aggregates that make up our experience, our physical body, the bones, the elements that make up our body, have to go through their own transformation, and that happens in time. So the enlightenment that everyone talks about is instantaneous. The thing that Eckhart Tolle described when he was in that depression, and then he had this awakening, and then he's on a bench for 2 years after that, right? That moment is instantaneous. That realization is instantaneous. It's timeless. But the transformation that subsequently happens after the fact happens in time.
Right. Because you're still dealing with the physical body.
Yeah, because the physical body is going to go through its transformations. Right. And Yuji Krishnamurti talked about that there is a period where it was like the chi in his body was ripping it apart, basically. So to answer Robin's question, yes, if you meditate, I feel that if you reach or relax into deeper states of meditation, that activates latent chi and it improves your health automatically. So I feel that to be an adept meditator and to still have negative, like bad health, pretty much, it's like you have to be twice as bad with your health, because you actually have the latent energy that's in your system, that it's awakened. So it charges up your cells. You have a presence that energizes you that the ordinary person doesn't, and it's a presence that can be healing. And still, you end up having bad health. So, but a lot of that is karmic too, and that's another thing to consider.
And for us, we want to balance all these things out to have as deep of a meditation cultivation as possible. You obviously you meditate, but you also want to try to eat healthy, do some sort of physical exercise, because all these things do help out later on, even in your practice. They'll no matter what you do. So people that just only focus on meditation and not properly do these types of like yoga or Tai Chi practices and eat healthy, yeah, you'll still there's nothing wrong with it.
Still have deep realization for sure,
Yeah.
and become totally awakened, but lifespan may be short. So
Is that what it is?
lifespan of the physical body, the physical manifestation may be short. But the last point I wanted to make about this subject particularly is that at least in Theravada, there was a study that was done, must have been within the last few years, where it indicated that 30% of the Theravadan Sangha has diabetes, which is devastating. And so now, at least in the temple that I'm from, there's this major push towards offering healthier foods to the monastic community, making sure that we're not just offering sweets and mangoes and rice all the time, because that's going to have negative consequences. But this whole move towards being healthier, even in monastic circles, is fairly new. It wasn't a thing in like 1980, but it definitely is now. I think it's because there was like a huge, influx in processed foods that everyone was eating. So people are addressing that and wanting to live longer, even if they're monastics. They want to serve and share the Dharma for as long as they can. So it's important that we take care of our health. So you want to read the next question?
Yeah, let's read the next question. So I want to read this one. So does an experienced meditator come to a point where he has no more bad meditations?
Yes, absolutely affirmative. I would say that without any reservation. Because this whole notion of having good and bad meditations, they're value judgments that exist in your mind. So once you're beyond judging value, good, bad, lesser, greater, whatever, then that problem is eliminated.
Yeah.
And so when a meditator naturally falls away, there's no difference. It comes to a point where there's no difference between you sitting on the meditation cushion and you walking down the street, or you eating food. That the awakened mind, the presence, the mindfulness is there, irrespective of what you do. So whether you're sitting or standing or moving, it's all practice. At that point, there's no good or bad meditation. But what's your take on it?
In the beginning, when you start to practice, you're going to either tell yourself this is a good meditation or a bad meditation. And that's just natural, where we have these ideas in ourselves. We go through bad, we go through good. And so we're going to express those judgments and those conditionings into our meditations. But there's a point into your awareness where you start to actually be more objective behind these things. It happens so naturally. It's like there's a difference between a storm that comes inside a forest. Do the trees react? Do anything within the forest reacts in such a way that humans do? No, a storm just passing by is something so natural. But for us as humans, when an emotional storm arises, we react. It's like, oh no, I shouldn't feel this. I should not feel this. And we say, and we react. And so in our meditations, if we're feeling anxious, if we're feeling pain, if we're feeling antsy, we're going to automatically say, because of our own influences and conditionings, this is a bad meditation. But there's just this phenomenon that naturally happens where your awareness starts to see things as, oh, it's just something so natural. Suffering is natural. Pain is natural. So it's neither good or bad. So to kind of answer his question, I don't think there's such thing as a good meditation. I think it's just meditation. It's just awareness. And within my practice now, it's like that. It's just I'm sitting down and I'm practicing. There's nothing bad, there's nothing good. But it takes practice to get to that point, obviously. And it's not something to pursue. I want to emphasize that. You're not trying to pursue, okay, I want to have that non-good or non-bad. No, because you're goal chasing. You're gonna try to chase this thing that may be artificial at a point.
Yeah, it's like you have this idea in your mind of what a good meditation is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to feel. And what we can end up doing is trying to contort our experience to fit that, when really the most profound meditations always come naturally. It's like when your mind is emptied of those images and it's not trying to be other than how it is, and it's just naturally resting in whatever practice that you're doing. I think that's the best way to practice. And this is even a subject when it comes to following teachers. Ricardo has a teacher, I have a teacher, I've had many teachers. And we can find ourselves trying to be the teacher, trying to become like the teacher. And what we actually end up doing is trying to fit an image of that teacher that we've created in their mind, in our mind, as opposed to the reality that the teacher actually abides in. And that reality is not accessible through concepts. We're not actually able to get to where we want to go by trying to fit an image of what we think our experience is supposed to be. So if I tell you I did this meditation and there was light, for example, and a lot of happiness, and you internalize those words and you try to meditate and you're waiting for the light and you're waiting for the happiness, that very waiting and expectation is the thing itself that's going to obstruct the light and the happiness. So this is the it's kind of like a paradox when we're following teachers and we're modeling in a way, but the modeling actually doesn't produce the deep meditation states that we're talking about. But of course, we have to we do consider that these masters and people that we've learned from are really incredible examples of right conduct and incredible examples of harmonious behavior, and it's just fantastic even following in their footsteps because they're so graceful. They have insight.
There's a difference between copying and reverence, and
right.
That should be emphasized. Like copying is legit, like you're just, oh, I'm imitating everything they do, I want to be just like them. But you're very unique in your own structures and your own life. That's who you, like, whatever your life is your life. Don't try to copy. But there's nothing wrong with reverence and honoring the path that these masters and these cultivators have done in the past. It is following their footsteps in a way where it's still unique in your own life.
Yeah, this whole thing is happening in your mind at the base of it. There's every attainment, every meditation, every realization you have is inseparable from mind. It's inseparable from awareness. And that awareness, that mind is not conceptual. It's not something that fits in a frame. It's not something that is found in a book. It's not something that I can transmit to you really through words. It's just the words, the books, and everything that we're talking about. It helps you turn inward. It helps you relax and realize that. But it's not the thing itself. So, yeah, we go to the next question.
I hope that answered it. I think so. Let's see. I mean, what?
I think that was a good one. What are the milestones? What are the milestones when it comes to meditation skill? This is I really love this question because meditation is a skill. The awareness that unfolds in meditation is not a skill, but removing obstructions, being non-attached, not judging, learning to observe, learning to relax, all of those things are skills. Let's say you have a really, really incredible meditation and the awareness is so deep, so still, body feels light, all of that. but you're finding that in the following hour after that meditation, whatever activity it is that you do, that awareness is not sustained through that specific activity. It's like as soon as the meditation ends, your presence is gone. So it takes skill and time, actually, to really be able to have that presence when you're talking, or have that mindfulness when you're talking, or when you're working, or when you're doing anything creative, when you're actually using the mind and engaging in activity. That's skill. When you have an obstacle in meditation, like let's say you're getting very sleepy, or the mind is particularly agitated, how you deal with that and overcome that to get to reestablish presence and have stillness and mindfulness be more prevalent, that process is, we consider that skill. So are there milestones? I would say that even being able to have presence for a minute continuously, to have the presence be deep enough for it to last a minute, you would consider that a milestone. And you'd be surprised, because when I first started, I don't think I could be mindful for a minute. Not even a minute. It's like you just start meditating, and then within 10 seconds, your awareness is gone, just off into something. So there's milestones for sure. I don't generally like to measure things in time, but if we are frank and honest, the meditator who has deep presence is able to remain in presence for longer periods of time.
Think about it like you're growing this plant. The meditation itself, that skill, is a seed, and you practicing it, whatever it may be through mindfulness, it may be through yoga, maybe it's a multiple things. You're allowing the seed to cultivate and grow. At a certain point, it's going to bear fruit, but it takes time. There are milestones, and like Ryan was saying, it's like you have a minute of mindfulness. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, a minute of pure just being relaxed and aware. That's a very valuable thing.
And I don't want to get too esoteric behind certain milestones.
Yeah, because there's many. In Buddhism, we have samadhis, deeper and more refined states of meditation are also considered milestones.
I think on the basis of it is sustaining that awareness and that very presence for longer periods of time, where you can even take it out of your practice into ordinary life. Really, meditation is supposed to be where you meditate when you open your eyes and close your eyes throughout the day. You sitting down is just one part of it. Now try to do it when you're shopping, when you're running, when you're arguing, when you're doing all these activities. Really, that's I would say is the first step in your measurement.
Yeah, because that 1 minute is going to turn to 5 minutes, and those 5 minutes is going to turn to 10 minutes, and that 10 minutes is going to turn to 20. And at that point, meditation will be very natural. But we have to become natural with the minute first. And of course, there are milestones. There's samadhis, and by that we mean deep states of meditation where the mind is very, very undistracted. Sense doors are there's not as much data coming through there. Perception of light, and non-duality. So those are milestones, but they're for people who are having more profound, consistent mindfulness and presence. So I like this question.
I like number 7.
Yeah, I was just gonna. That's the exact question I was looking at.
Okay. Do you recommend Vipassana retreat to everyone? So for me,
such a hard question.
For me, no, I don't.
Dang.
I really don't. To be honest, I don't recommend even. I think everyone's unique. Everyone has their own life. I don't think everyone should even meditate, and that's my own opinion on this. Just like not everyone should practice yoga. I think everyone needs their own unique practice, and you have your own life. Like if you're trying to become, let's say you're an orange, okay? You are trying to bear fruit of orange. But some people just want to be an apple. But you're never going to be an apple.
Because you're an orange.
Because you're an orange. And that's why I think with meditation and just like all these other...
It's not going to happen.
All these other things in an individual's life, a lot of people try to be and do things that just aren't necessary for them. And with me, I have examples in my life where I've done that. Like, oh, I'm going to be this salesman, and even though I hate it, but it's going to make me the most money. And I did that, and it didn't make me happy. I think I wasted my time when I look back at it. And once I transitioned my career into firefighting, it was so smooth. It was so relaxed, and I excelled at it. I really didn't do, I feel like I didn't do anything, but I did so much at the same time, but it was so natural. And so when we talk about Vipassana retreats, I don't recommend it to everyone because I feel that some people are just not meant to handle that extreme environment.
Yeah.
Of, 12 hours of meditation. I mean, when I've gone to retreats like this, I've heard people scream. I'm not gonna lie.
I recommend it. I do. I get that there's danger in doing such intense meditation, and that, of course, there's always that rare situation where someone has a mental breakdown or something like that. So that has happened on different kinds of long-term retreats. But see, that's not the technique's fault. It's not even the retreat's fault. Those conditions, that seed of breaking, is already in that person. It's just that when they go into the meditation retreat and the pressure is on and they're not talking to anyone and it's very silent, that that seed and that energy is stimulated to the point of breaking. It has happened, but it's very rare. I've never seen a person on a retreat break down. Ricardo actually has.
On all my Vipassana retreats.
Yeah. So I recommend, for people, this is the caveat, for people who are inclined to meditate a lot, meditation is something they want to really dive into, absolutely do a Vipassana retreat. But for people that are just starting and you're having a hard time meditating 15 minutes a day and you're getting agitated with yourself, I think that going to a Vipassana retreat is going to be very intense. There's also the thing to consider too, is that it's so difficult at times, so challenging, that it just drastically improves your skill as a practitioner because of its level of difficulty. That's what happened to me, and that's what happens to a lot of people who do Vipassana retreats. But on the other hand, we have to consider that it is a very difficult retreat for a lot of people, and people do leave. That's the truth. You do a retreat, you're with 20 guys at the start, 25 guys, and at the end of it, only 20 are left. So it is intense. But if you're dedicated to meditation, I think it's an experience everyone should have, for sure.
I agree. I feel that if a person, I think that person knows whether or not this is the life they want to go into with meditation, and doing it with Vipassana retreat doesn't help. I mean, it does help, but like you're going into this, and I feel that they just know intuitively, like, this is, this is it for me. Yeah, this is the thing. But also, for me, I feel that certain practices aren't for everyone. I really do believe that. I think some people can practice mindfulness and breathing, but if another person practices it, they won't get as good of a result. Maybe they need to practice yoga. So I just like going back,
or visualization.
Yeah. Like, this is my own experience with people, that some people excel at practices more than the other. So I find that doing a Vipassana retreat, maybe it's not going to help. And that's truth. You can either have positive or negative results. And so again, I just feel that those that are gonna benefit from it when they go, they're gonna see it, and those that aren't gonna benefit.
Well, since this question came from Robin, and I know Robin.
Okay.
I would say Robin do a Vipassana retreat. It's awesome. I've only done one, and I served on the others. But that retreat, it was so awesome. It was very difficult the first 5 days, and on the 7th day, everyone's freaking out. Everyone's having a hard time. Guys' side of the room, guys are crying. Women's side of the room, women are crying. No one's looking at each other. Everyone's having a hard time. But at the end of that retreat, when the silence is broken and you can finally talk, I feel like that's the most valuable thing about this retreat is that you don't talk for 10 days. That's the most valuable thing. So at the end of it, when the vow is broken and everyone's talking, this is like the happiest I've ever seen people. In my life, that is the happiest I've ever seen people. Everyone was ecstatic to be talking again. And I remember walking in the snow and no one was around, and I was just looking at this path through the woods and the trees. And just for the first time in my life, time really stopped. And I just felt this immense sense of peace arise in me. And I thought to myself, this peace is so deep that if I died right now, my life would have been worth it. Not everyone has an experience like that. A lot of people go and end up having not much happen at all. Other people have incredible things happen. So it varies, but I would say personally, yeah, if you're a meditator, I definitely recommend it.
I think this is a good segue to something important. I think we've always mentioned this, which is the difference between deep practice and just kind of self-help mindfulness stuff.
Yeah, and I don't see anything wrong with a more self-help orientation on meditation. I think that it's better to do some than to do none. And yeah, if meditating 5 minutes a day is all you can do, that's great. But don't meditate 5 minutes a day and be mad at yourself for not being where you are spiritually. It's just a matter of dedication and time, because the people who are in what I call spiritual contentment, they really, there was a lot of practice to be done.
And I think a Vipassana retreat is the introduction to that real understanding of what it takes to be on this strict path. This if you want the real understanding of what meditation is, please do Vipassana retreats. But if we go into just this 5 minute self-help meditation, it's completely different. It's not comparable at all. And again, just like what Ryan was saying, there's nothing wrong with it. There really isn't. If you want to do that, go for it. But there is this difference, and there's a lot more sacrifices to it.
Yeah, I think when you pick up a practice and you really make that a part of your life, there's a kind of nourishment that comes from that. There's a kind of presence and happiness that comes from really doing it every day, or trying to do it even if you can't do it that day, or having mindfulness and presence in your life outside of meditation. I remember starting just the number of minutes in a day that I was actually conscious, actually awake, actually present. It's like not even a minute. It was like 30 seconds when you're starting. When I was starting, it's just not even a concept that you're really familiar with. You're like, presence, mindfulness, consciousness. What is that? What does that actually mean? What does that look like? So in the beginning, there's not much happening, at least for me. Maybe all of you are much more gifted than I was, and you have these karmic seeds that will make you fantastic practitioners very quickly. But if you're not that kind of person, we're working with seconds of awareness here. Minutes. So to talk about hours and days of being in presence and and awareness. That's further along the line. And I don't think really that, using an app to fall asleep is gonna get you there. Particularly if you're using it to fall asleep, because you can't fall asleep during this stuff if you actually want it to work. And I talk with a lot of people who, come to me for advice on meditation, and they're like, yeah, I meditate every day. And I'm like, how much? How often do you meditate? And they're like, yeah, 30 minutes after lunch, 30 minutes before I go to sleep. I'm like, oh, that's great. And I'm like, what happens in the session? How do you practice? And they're like, oh, I just lay down and put on these headphones. And I'm like, and then what happens? And they're like, and then they just smile. And I'm like, you're sleeping. They're like, yeah. I'm like, it's not meditation. If you're sleeping, it's not meditation. It's not. It's just not. If you're asleep and you happen to be aware,
yeah,
I would consider that meditation, because that's actually called dream yoga. But if you're meditating and you're laying down and you blank out, it's like, yeah, just accept that you blanked out. But because I have friends that are monks who have been meditating for 8 years, and one of them said, for about 3 of those years, I thought my meditation was fantastic, because every time I would fall asleep and wake up, I would just feel so refreshed and rejuvenated. I was like, yes, that was such a good meditation. And then he realized, oh, but it's just, I just feel good because I fell asleep. Yeah, not meditation. His teacher comes along and starts to really review his practice, and like, you've just been sleeping the whole time? He's like, yeah. It's like, no, you got to stop that. I would have told him that after a day, if I saw that. But, it's a big monastery, so it's hard to always catch things. But next question. We got a question from, I think it's Alin. Mm-hmm. Is that how we say it? This is a big question.
Is meat healthy?
Yeah. Because it's difficult to get into the vegetarian moral debate. I really don't do that. But is meat healthy in the sense that you get nutrition from it?
This is my opinion.
You're better on this.
This is my opinion. I'm always the individual that will express that each person is different. You kind of have your own karma, your own life path, your own thing to some from not eating meat. That's just what it is. Some people benefit from eating meat.
And we've both seen this happen.
I have a friend who actually tried to become vegan, got very sick, and he did everything right. He had the proper foods, the proper nutrition, but he just got sick. And once he started eating meat again, he felt better. And the opposite happened. Some people just, they eat meat, they can't do it, go into veganism. Fantastic. So I think it's circumstantial. Just like in your meditation practice, it's all circumstantial. And that is my opinion on, is meat healthy?
Well, what's your take? Because Ricardo has some deeper knowledge on this that he's not sharing. Okay, so that as a requirement for one of the trainings that you've done, that you avoid pork and you reduce meat consumption.
Oh, yeah.
What is that all about?
So it's funny because a lot of these ancient traditions always say either avoid pork or shellfish. So let's go into shellfish for a second. What is shellfish?
Bottom feeders.
Bottom feeders. And what is a bottom feeder? They are the natural cleanser of the ocean. They eat the poop and they eat all the nasty stuff. Shrimp, crabs, all those things.
The most delicious things.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're delicious. And then once we eat it, we're actually getting whatever they eat into our bodies. They're not very nutritious.
It's the idea that I want you to address the prana aspect of this, because the reason that, for example, Chokok Soy told people not to eat pork, and especially not to eat pork if they're doing Twin Hearts meditation, is because he said the pork actually has a dirty
energy,
prana and energy in it.
Exactly. There's dirty prana, there's dirty chi, and once you eat it, it actually, especially if you're not very proficient in your energetic practices, it will affect you. It'll affect your meditation practice. It'll affect if you do healing, it'll affect your healing practice, your yoga practice. And that's just what we've seen with pork and shellfish. Yeah.
That being said, I do know meditation masters who eat pork,
Mm-hmm.
and they always laughed at me for making a big deal out of it. They're like, "What do you mean? What do you mean you don't eat pork? You're in Thailand." And I'm like, "I just don't eat pork," and they're like, "It doesn't make a difference." And I'm like, "I know, but I can feel it." And they're they just make fun of me.
But see, that's the thing though. There's a reason why I said earlier, there's masters out there who will eat pork or do these things, but it doesn't affect them. You know why? They're at a specific type of level at that point. They're not where we are, where our awareness and mindfulness.
Energy is less refined.
Yeah, they're more refined. It takes a longer time for these things to affect them, or it won't even affect them at all. But because we're in the more relative sphere of mind, we're gonna feel these effects. And one story that comes up is when I remember the story of what's his name, Maharishi and the Beatles, and I remember that Maharishi drank a vial of acid or LSD in front of them.
You sure this is a Maharishi story?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
It's not from Be Here Now?
No.
Oh, okay.
He drank it. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. Maybe it could be from Be Here Now. Regardless,
there was this Indian sage that had taken.
I really think it's the Beatles.
I don't think it is, because he was against LSD. Because a lot of people were coming to his centers on acid.
Yes.
And he was like, no.
Yes.
But I don't think that story is him, man. I think that's Maharaj Ramdas's teacher. Because it's directly in Be Here Now. He takes a few tabs of acid, nothing happens.
Well, okay, there.
There's so many different Maharajas and Indian teachers. You can get things mixed up, but
yeah. So he takes it, doesn't affect him. Why does he need it?
Yeah, his energetic anatomy is different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the brain, an ordinary person.
The brain and the spiritual anatomical structures are much more refined than just a normal individual. So, like, I know masters that they'll joke around, but they'll say, "Oh, I can eat pork, shellfish, smoke marijuana, and do cocaine, and it won't affect me." It won't. First of all, anatomically, physically, in the physical side of things, they're just, if they've done the practices, like not only the meditation practice, like the sitting down practices, their stomach is so strong. All their organs are refined. But now we get into the energetic structures of things. Those are also refined. They're not in this. It's almost like.
And by this you mean their chakras and
meridians, yeah. And much more complexities behind it. But it's so much more refined that it's almost. Oh man, the only way I can describe it is it's like
pouring gasoline into a Tesla. Does nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not even a place you could put gasoline in.
It's almost like not human in a way, like they're just the way they're built upon now.
Well, it reminds me of a story from Far Journeys by Robert Monroe, and he said that he never tried mescaline or any of these psychedelics, but that after having out-of-body experiences for 30 years, he tried these things like in a laboratory setting, and they had no effect on him. Did nothing. So his anatomy and his body is different.
Yeah, it got so used to, because I always think you're gonna get the same effects of these drugs at a certain point in your practice, but it's not like it just comes off naturally.
Yeah, because people have asked that about psychedelics particularly. do the states that you experience in meditation, is that similar to what happens to people on psychedelics? And I think that the characteristic experiences of oneness, vanishing of the ego, vanishing of the self, non-duality, even non-local perception, those things definitely happen. Mm-hmm. But I think the types of experiences that are more characteristic to like psychedelic journeys, like a spirit guide appearing, I feel like that's less common.
Well, that is less common, and that's when you have to be,
because all of that happens when you have unusual side effects, not unusual, but side effects like out of body experiences, lucid dreams, mystical experiences. Right. When those start to happen, that's reflective of what people experience on psychedelics. But even then, the main difference is on psychedelics, this is, as far as I know, unless you're a shaman who's trained in it, this is usually not something that's repeatable. It's not something that you're able to direct your mind to and really go into the same way that you would in an out of body experience or after coming out of samadhi. So, but that's just my take on it. I could be wrong on that. Maybe if someone's taken that plant medicine enough times, they're able to navigate that dimension. But I feel that I had a guest named Joe Gallenberger on a couple of weeks ago, and he's a psychologist too. He gave me his perspective on psychedelics, and he said, my honest opinion is that if people take too much of this stuff, kind of fries those
receptors.
Yeah, exactly. For like natural happiness and all of that, because he says he's had to work with people who have experienced fallout from doing too many trips.
Yeah, my opinion on it is you have to be very cautious about it. It's not, a lot of people do it recreationally and want it to be the spiritual journey. That's cool and all. You're not in the right setting for that. Like some people want to go out to the Amazon and do it, and that's great. Find a shaman, you do you. But, maybe we're going a little off track, but for me, there needs to be caution on these things. And like you'll see, like you this thing comes to you, the spiritual guide. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know.
Yeah, as a meditation instructor, when I'm asked this question and that at that angle, I usually almost always I know that's like a more conservative way of approaching that thing, but it's just because I've seen how the psychedelic experience can go wrong, and the real negative effects of use of psychedelics. Because what's happening is you're taking this substance and it's causing your energy centers to expand at such a fast and alarming rate that there could be consequences. And how this was traditionally is, for the most part, I'm not sure how frequent this use was, but there's this whole aspect of processing the journey and going through the lessons and integrating that into your life. And that takes a lot of time. So yeah, they are powerful. I don't deny that they've helped people, but generally when people ask me about it in relation to meditation and awakening, I almost always say, be careful. And if you're going to do it, then please do it in the right setting with the right person.
Right.
Shaman.
Right.
Yeah. Because I can't see this thing. I can't deny that. None of us can deny that these things, ayahuasca, the different substances, have transformed people's lives permanently. People go in, they've had depression, they've had this trauma for years. They take the ayahuasca, the spirit of the ayahuasca appears. Suddenly, the trauma has been healed. That happens. But as far as like it being something that gets you closer to enlightenment, I don't really think that applies.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat limiting. I really think it's somewhat limiting because you're now having this dependency on this plant or this
external substance.
Yeah. And you're not training your own mind or your own body to be able to go into those states and those places. So I think it's somewhat limiting, and that's my own like again, like I agree with you totally. Where people go out, they're depressed, they use these medicines, and then they don't get depressed. Like I don't deny that, but to somewhere pursue what the true insights of the meaning of life, or what enlightenment is, or what cultivating awareness is, I don't think that's. Yeah, I don't think that
it applies.
Yeah.
Yeah, can help, can reveal certain lessons, can be a good introduction in certain ways. I know a lot of people who, like Jack Kornfield, for example, became a Buddhist teacher and went to Thailand and all of that because of his experience with psychedelics. Similar story with me and a lot of people that I know. But most of us, as soon as we saw that meditation was something to be taken up seriously, all our teachers told us, you can't do that stuff. If you're going to be meditating a lot, you're going to be working with different energies that arise from meditation. Many different things start to happen. You just can't be using those. And they all had their reasons for that. I think our friend and teacher Bruce said, if you guys want real power, you need to set those things aside and just focus on the meditation. Because I guess he was seeing that the use causes a kind of instability that is not useful for the development of mindfulness, or at least it can. So we've got about 9 minutes left before the hour's up. So let's take a couple more questions. If anyone has questions, you can put them in the comments if you're from YouTube or Facebook. Let's see. I think this is a good one. What do you think about this?
The first one.
Yeah.
The tingling in your head that appears when you manage to get a strong focus, non-focus. Do you understand the question?
Yeah, just sensations that come up in the head from meditating.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Nick requested to be on our live.
Oh, go for it.
Okay. Oh, come back. Oh.
Disappeared.
Hey. Where'd it go? We just saw it.
But anyways.
Anyway, okay.
So again, the tingling in your head that appears when you manage to get a focus / non-focus. So
strong focus / non-focus. Is that I think he's referring to kind of the stream of attention that's more narrow from concentration, and then like the open focus presence that people get from Zen type practices.
Right. I mean, most awareness. When that tingling sensation appears, I'm always in the same position as I'm always in with any meditation practice, that it arises. Even if it's such a great spiritual experience, it's just, it's something that arises and naturally passes. So that tingling sensation, it may be something powerful. I mean, you may feel like vibrations. You may feel just little tingling sensations, but I think they're a byproduct of refining your sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
So at a certain point, not only does your awareness refine itself, but your just like certain sensations in the body, especially like if you're doing Vipassana, you'll start to feel much deeper inside the body. You can feel the heat
in your marrow.
Yeah, in the marrow of the, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So it's a much deeper level of perception. I think that when it comes to tingling sensations, a lot of our physical organs and different parts of our body are related to the energetic anatomy. So, if you're in the presence of a teacher, you're in a holy place, you may feel that there's actually sensations and tingling on the crown, because the crown center is being stimulated by that environment. And that happens in meditation too. If people will notice if there's a lot of stillness or a lot of presence, that their crown responds, or there's a sense of lightness in their head. So it's just a side effect of practice, because there's a relationship between consciousness and chi, consciousness and energy in the body. So as the mind becomes more still, as presence increases, or there's just more stillness, the chi in the body is going to become refined to match that, or it's going to go through its own process to attenuate to these levels of consciousness that are unfolding or arising. So the different sensations that we can experience in meditation are just related to that. They're just related to, we just consider it energy phenomena. So sometimes when people are doing a lot of yoga or they've done that practice consistently, or pranayama, they do the pranayama hold and they feel this massive heat rising from the lower belly. What's happening there is that the navel chakra has just become full of enough energy from those practices that when that energy reaches its capacity, there's a sensation of heat that's perceived. So all kinds of different sensations, lots of different phenomena arise as a result of practices, and even the different practices cause different sensations.
Yeah, I think once your awareness cultivates much more narrow, you'll start to really just feel more in depth of even the organs moving, or even the blood rushing to your hands and just going throughout your body. On a psychological level, the more your awareness expands and becomes more refined, the deeper you'll go. Sometimes a deep-rooted emotion may arise at that moment. But that's just a result. That's always the byproduct of your meditation practice. So you'll see that you'll become more aware of not only these deep-rooted traumas or conditionings, but also these little mechanisms that the body does naturally. But that comes with patience and practice.
Yeah, I think to address the question one more time, I used to have an issue with sensations in the head from intense focus. So what's happening is that if you're putting effort, too much, especially too much effort into a concentration object like the breath or a location on the body or even a visualized image, what's going to happen is that there's going to be a kind of tension that arises in your forehead, and there can be tingling that comes with that. But know that it's from the tension of your concentration. So it's not actually a good thing. And when I met the vice abbot of the Dhammakaya temple in Thailand, he didn't even know I was doing this forced concentration thing. And he just pointed at my head and he's like, you got to stop that. This is whatever. If you're doing that in meditation, you got to stop that. It's actually can, if taken very far, be harmful to use focus that's that intense. Because we mix up the word concentration with the word stillness. Because this is from a Pali word and the Sanskrit word samadhi. But that's actually referring to stillness. But when it was translated by the early Buddhist translators, we got the word concentration. That word used at this point. And it's not the same kind of concentration that we learned in school. It just means the mind is collected and unified in stillness on an object. That's what it really means. So if you're relaxed, you're open, present, mindfulness is established, and tingling starts happening, it's normal, totally normal. If there's a point where your mind, you get tingling all over the place, you just have to be able to observe these sensations and not necessarily attach yourselves to them, because some of the sensations are very blissful, just still a part of the process of non-doing. Let it arise, let it grow, whatever.
Well, I know for me, I know, observing my past experience, I made up these experiences. Like the mind, like if you want to feel certain sensations or see certain things, there's a difference between it naturally arising and then you
having that arise,
projection of it. But if your mind isn't refined, you're not going to know the difference. You're going to think, oh my God, this is it. This is what I've been wanting. But once you start to practice it correctly, you'll see, oh man, the mind is tricky.
Yeah, I wanted to hear what the last minute. Yuji Krishnamurti had a good quote about that, or a good saying on it. He said that the happiness that can arise in meditation can be of a frictional nature. Like your expectations and the way that you're contorting the mind using the technique can produce that happiness. But that happiness is not as refined and not as profound as the happiness of letting go and the happiness that naturally arises when you just meditate and become still. So I think this is a good place to end. If anyone has any more questions that they want to ask us for next week, you can just message, DM me or Ricardo through Facebook or through Instagram, and we'll address them again on our next episode of R&R. All right. Thanks for joining, everyone.